Welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph Labella.
And how can we not talk about the briefly in first place Celtics? I'm thinking to myself, well, the only thing that can derail them is a serious injury. And then about 5 minutes later, Robert Williams goes down with a torn meniscus.
That was unbelievable. I mean, everybody was excited. Anybody who was a Celtic fan they said, hey, they do have a chance. With that lineup, they have a chance to beat any of these teams. Brooklyn was going to be tough, if they were all playing back. And with Curry, people don't talk about Curry too much. A great three-point shooter on that team. But, when Williams went down, I go, you have got to be kidding me. And that's the one person we were worried about, too.
Well, they believe they signed him to a 4-year, $56 million contract this year. And I'm thinking, the guy just can't stay healthy. But, he's extremely productive. If you look at his statistics per 36 minutes, blocks, rebounds, he's a very good passer. He's terrific on the pick and lob. He got to be a better free throw shooter. He's not great, but he's not a liability. But he couldn't stay healthy. And
they're talking about him as one of the defensive players of the year.
Right. So along with Marcus Smart and, of course, Antetokounmpo.
He had a good game against Philly the other night. Unbelievable game. But the Celtics, that was bad because now, you're thinking without Williams, how are they going to beat Philly if they played them? How are they going to beat Milwaukee, Miami? How are they going to beat Brooklyn if they don't have him there? You have Tice, who they picked up, who's there's things he can do that Williams can't do. He can shoot the ball at the three-point shot. He runs the floor okay. He can block shots at times, but he's not Williams. Hofford's had a great year. But the thing with the Celtics, too, Ron, we were talking about, you got Brown and you have Tatum. Tatum, one of the top 10 players in the league. You would say Brown's one of the top 25 in the NBA. You have those two. But neither one of them have proven that they're winners yet. Neither one of them.
They've both been to the Eastern Conference Finals twice, but they didn't win either time. One of the times they lost in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, I think the team shot 6 for 42 on three-point shots. So the problem is if you have the biggest game of your life and you can't throw it in the ocean, what's your fallback plan?
No, if anybody who watches the Celtic games, and you watch the games they lose at the end, when they're close games, very rarely does Tatum or Brown come through. That's when they play their worst basketball. Their worst basketball is being played at the end of close games, both of them. And that's why, as good as they are when the things are going right, they're great players at times. They're not great players when they need it the most, and that's what the problem is.
You can go to sites like NBA.com, and they break down the statistics into excruciating detail. So by play type, by cutting, by isolation, by pick and roll ball handler, by pick and roll roller, etc. And one of the lowest points per possession play is isolation. So what does every single team do at the end of the game? Isolation. The best, at his best, isolation player in the NBA, you might be surprised if you want to guess who it is. Who's the best points per possession guy? You give him the ball at any one point in the game.
Durant.
Well, it's actually Harden, because Harden can shoot and he can take
fouled.
He can you get foul him, it's automatic practically. So, but as a whole, isolation plays are low, but every single team runs it at the end. Whereas you'd think that if you score more on cutting than you're doing anywhere else, why don't you set up plays where guys cut? Well, I'm sure there's some reason that defensively why it's harder to do that, because probably the guy cutting gets held and the officials don't call it because they don't want to influence the game at the end.
Oh, of course.
The game last night that the Celtics lost, the officiating was brutal. It was just horrible. And, Tatum got a technical. I think Smart got tossed.
Was it bad? I didn't see it because I was at practice.
It was just horrendous, the officiating. The first half of the game, you have people pounding on each other like a boxing match, and Jimmy Butler goes up for a jump shot and falls down, and they call a foul. Nobody's even touching him. So you let people punch each other, and then you let them fall down, and you call fouls. I mean, it was just an embarrassment.
Well, it didn't help when Smart went 2 for 11 on 3-pointers.
Well,
he must have loved not having Tatum or Brown there.
So it just, that's why they play a lot of games. Some games you lose for whatever reason. Hopefully they learn from their mistakes. They learn from the film. The guy the Celtics cut, Strus, it seemed like he had about 40 points. I'm sure he didn't, but he was making threes from all over the place. And Spoelstra is one of the top coaches in the league. Now, I don't know if you know the trivia question about Eric Spoelstra. He went to Portland State. So what is he most famous for at Portland State?
No, I don't know.
He was on the court when Hank Gathers died.
Oh.
So Spoelstra is a really interesting guy, and he has a lot of great quotes. But one of his quotes that I like the most is, "There is always a pecking order." And wherever you are, if you're, if I'm in the medical hierarchy, you're in the courthouse, neither of us are the top guy. That's how it is. You don't say, well, I'm higher than the judge. That's not how it goes. And the same way, Jimmy Butler and Adebayo are on the top of the pecking order for the Heat. That's how it is. And Spoelstra just says, if you want to be at the top of the pecking order, you got to be the top player. And if you're not, you just have to live with that. And sometimes in youth sports that's really hard, because you have a lot of people who believe you're the best. We're having this discussion online today. Can you have too many good players? And a lot of coaches came to the consensus, no, you can't have too many good players. You can have too many talented players who think they're good players. So just because you have talent doesn't mean that you fit into a system. The famous story about a guy that wouldn't pass the ball. So the coach set up an out-of-bounds play during scrimmage, and he told the guy who wouldn't pass to throw the ball in. And then he told all the other players to leave the court. And he said, now play. Got his point across.
No, but you talk about that, right? I've said that Tatum will never ever leave the Celtics. Maybe if he got older in his 30s, he might, if he didn't have a championship and he'd want a championship, because Tatum's the type of player who wants his numbers. He has to have his numbers. Early on, Kobe told him, you got to get your numbers if you want the money. Okay? And that's what he was thinking about. I want the big contract. So he got the numbers, he got the big contract. He goes to a team with a Harden on it. He would never play with Harden because he wouldn't be able to control the game, because Harden would be controlling the game. Never ever go to a team that had another superstar. He's in the perfect situation with the Celtics. The best thing that happened to him is when Kyrie left and Hayward left. Okay? Now he's the man. He's going to control the game. You see, which I don't understand, and Tatum's had an unbelievable year. At the beginning of the year he wasn't good, but since then he's been really good. He's talented. But you look at the situation. You got Pritchard in the game, who's the best. You can say Smart's the best point guard. Pritchard's the best point guard on that team. I mean, it's eventually going to come down to people that know the game know that Pritchard should be playing more minutes than White. And for some reason, White's getting 30 minutes a game and Pritchard's getting 20 at times. He's the best shooter on the team, three-point shooter. He's the best ball handler on the team. He could set up players, but for some reason the Celtics, who were supposed to change their philosophy when Stevens had by isolation, they're doing more isolations now with Tatum and Brown, and the other guys are standing in the corner and watching them. I believe that if they're going to, even though their offense has been really good, because again, Tatum's numbers have been unreal, if they ran an offense the way you would, typical offense, with a point guard control the game, and they ran Tatum off of picks, they wouldn't be able to double-team Tatum and Brown.
Well, I think Pritchard's excellent on-ball defense, and I've been paying special attention to that. But the problem is,
I know what you're going to say, the matchups.
They switch everything. So then White's a lot bigger, Smart's a lot bigger. And the other thing is that Brad Stevens was able to get some. I think White was a good addition. Tice is a good addition. And who'd they give up? They didn't really give up anybody.
You think Stevens is? What would you rate Stevens' job?
As a GM, I think he's doing fine so far. I mean, it's
okay.
Danny Ainge, getting Tatum and Brown, that was a key. And the Celtics had these hordes of draft choices. What did they really get out of them besides Tatum and Brown?
All right, so you're talking about Ainge, right?
Mm-hmm.
People that say that Ainge didn't do the job, was overrated, I don't think they know what they're talking about. I mean, you talk to people now about what Ainge did, right? He got Garnett and he got Allen, knowing that if he got Allen, he'd get Garnett. They win a championship. He didn't make that move, they wouldn't have won any championships. And it wasn't his fault that Garnett tore up his knee his second year when they would have won another one. And then they would have won again when they were playing the Lakers. That's another thing when they lose the 7 games. But he makes a deal. He gets Tatum. He gets Brown. He trades the number 1 pick knowing he's going to get Tatum in that year, and he gets Tatum. That was his key guy. He gets Brown when all the fans were booing him for taking that pick. So he's got them. Gets Smart. He gets Pritchard. He gets Nesmith, who I think is going to be good. He gets Williams. He gets both Williams. He drafts.
Yeah,
so the people that say that he didn't do good, look at what he's done. I mean, what other general managers? How many other general managers have done what he's done over the years? And a team would not want to. No one wanted to come to Boston back then. They wanted to go to California or Miami.
Well, I think people still want to go to Miami and Phoenix and.
I mean, he brings in Hayward. He signs Hayward. That didn't work out because of Brown and Tatum, their talent. So Hayward said, "I'm not going to stand in the corner and watch Tatum control the game." So he leaves. He brought in Horford. Horford ended up leaving, came back with Stevens, got him back, which is a great move. But I think Ainge did a great job. I loved him as a player, and I really liked him as a general manager. I think he did a great job for the Celtics.
Well, there's a lot of sentiment that he'll be the next number up there, not so much for being a player, but for his combination of player and general manager. So, and I agree with you that I don't think Tatum's going anywhere. I mean, when you have your star players, you want to keep your star players, and we'll see. If Williams can come back, they have a legitimate shot to get to the finals.
He loves the situation he's in now, Tatum. He loves it. He can do whatever he wants out there. He's playing with the perfect teammates. They're letting him. They're going to stand in the corner, letting him. Hey, listen, he's talented, but he's still not one of the top 10 players in the. Until he starts showing that he's going to take over games like some of these other stars do in games. He can't compete to Embiid or the Greek or Durant yet.
No,
he can't. Because he's got to show it.
Right. They have him. The most recent poll, I think they had him in the top 5 among the people you mentioned, and Luka Doncic, which Doncic just drives.
He burns the Celtics.
He's 28 feet from the basket, and he takes a step back and makes it.
But know what I would like to see someone do? I'd like to see someone get the stats on close games at the end. I'm talking about the end, where you need the big shots. I'd like to see how many big shots Tatum has made and how many he has missed. Same thing with Brown. They're not clutch yet. They're still young, but that's when you're going to tell if they're going to be, if Tatum's going to be one of the top 5 players in basketball. He's still not there because he hasn't showed that he's a real winner yet.
The player, to me, who's most outperformed my expectations by leaps and bounds.
Smart?
No, he's not on the Celtics. Is LaMelo Ball. I thought the guy was going to be nothing, but
he's grown, huh? He was a little.
Yeah, he's like 6'7", and he's a great passer, and he's a solid rebounder, good scorer. I don't know if he plays any defense, but Charlotte can really score. I
have to give credit to Smart, though, this year. I was really down on him last year.
Well, he stopped taking as many shots, and he's more committed to be a playmaker.
I mean, 2 for 11, but I know Brown and Tatum weren't there. And in one game, they left him open, and he went like 2 for 8. They were leaving him open to shoot the ball. You got to take it there.